I believe I can teach anyone to do anything. But I can't do it for them. They've got to do it. Now, when I met Phil, he was talking to a man named Ed Morrissey. I knew Ed well. And he and Phil knew each other. And Phil was reading Born Rich, my book. And he was going on to Ed about this book, wonderful ideas in this book. And Ed said, well, I know him. Phil said, you don't know him? And he said, no, I know him. He's a friend of mine. He said, phone him. So Ed says, okay, I can do that. So he phoned me. And he put Phil on the phone, and Phil said, I've got to talk to you. And I said, well, okay, you can talk to me, go ahead. Because I didn't know who he was. And I said, no, I want to come and see you. And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Las Vegas. And he said, I'll come there. I'm in LA, so I'll get there in a short time. So anyway, he phoned, he came, and he sat down, and we started to talk. Now, relative to the masses, Phil was doing pretty good. He was earning a couple $100,000 a year, and he had a reasonably good thing going. But relative to what he wanted, I mean, he was doing terrible. And so I asked him, I said, what do you want? What do you want? What are you earning? And he said, a couple hundred. And I said, what do you want? He said, I want to earn millions. And I said, well, I can show you how to earn millions of dollars. I can show anybody how to earn millions of dollars. And he didn't slow down, and he said, I said, is that all you want? No, he said, I want to win an Oscar. And I said, well, I can show you how to win an Oscar. Now, you see, logic would prevail or cut in and say, are you in that business? Have you won an Oscar? Well, you don't know how to do it. But I do know how to win an Oscar. I told him, he said, I wanted to win an Emmy. I said, I can show you how to do that. Now, I believe there's been 3,074 people win Oscars. Would that be about right? I think that's
yes.
It. Think, 3,074 people win Oscars. There's only been 26 people that have won an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. You win the Oscar for movies, you win the Emmy for television, and you win the Tony for Broadway. They're so totally different in many respects. I said, you got to do exactly what I tell you. Because I said, I am really a busy guy, and I don't have time to screw around. If you do it, fine. If you don't, you just, I won't be around. You won't hear me or see me. He said, I'll do exactly what you say. Now, I've given him some real difficult tasks for somebody starting to study this. But he did them. Everything I suggested, he's done. He probably is one of the best examples of this information that you're ever going to find anywhere. The guy is incredible. And he keeps coming to every meeting that I conduct. Unless he's in Europe shooting something, he's always here. Same seminar, and he's sitting there, he takes probably more notes than anybody else. And I recognized how effective it is because that's the way I was with Earl Nightingale. If Earl spoke, I was there. I didn't care what was going on. I was taking notes. I got boxes full of notes at home. Sometimes I never read them. But the writing of them made an indelible impression. And I kept doing this, and it's been 20 years. Phil Goldfine has literally earned millions of dollars. And I said the other day, I think, I've seen where he's earned $1 million in a couple of days. We'd be talking on the phone, he says, I earned $1 million yesterday. Now, what really changed is his awareness. I'm going to be going into something in a minute, but before I do, Phil, come on, I want you to come up here. let's take a look here and see what he's done. Now, what I didn't mention, it was Chase, what, swimming?
Case, yeah.
Case. He had a son, was a little guy, wanted to go swimming. He was taken to a school over in Santa Monica, I believe. And Phil was about 40 or 50 pounds more than he weighs right now. And he was sitting in the stands while the coach was teaching his son how to swim. And he said to Phil, "Did you ever swim?" He said, "I used to swim in school." He said, "Well, why don't you come and swim in the morning with your son?" And so he started. He has got to a point now where he can match gold medal decathlon swimmers. He swims with them. He's probably one of the most competitive swimmers in the world. Not for his age, for people many years younger than him. He's that good. At 4 and 5 in the morning, you'll find him in the pool in Santa Monica. Every morning. And he's swam in meets all over the world. That on top of all this. Phil, maybe you could share what each one of these are.
Okay, so Oscar, obviously, for the film.
No, don't just vote like that. There's people in this audience that sit drooling over one of these.
So
they don't just go, you know.
So Bob's right. When I first met him, you know, I was not doing that well.
Hold on.
When I first met Bob, I didn't think I was doing that well. Wow, there's a lot of people here. I just noticed. And so he said, "I can show you how to get your own film company, your own studio, an Oscar, Emmys." And I was in the back of my mind, just like Sandy's dad, my dad was in the back of my mind saying, what does this guy know about show business and winning an Oscar? But I had nothing to lose. And so I really listened to him. And I just said, okay, I'm just going to do whatever he says because if I don't, I'm never going to get an Oscar. I'm never going to make more money. So I really listened to him. And so it always was in the back of my mind. Because one thing that Bob always says is that always take it to the creative, never to the competitive. And every day I wake up and I think, okay, take it to the creative, not the competitive. You're not competing with anybody in Hollywood. And so this movie just crossed my desk. And at first I was thinking, another Holocaust movie, maybe. And then I started thinking about Bob, and he said, always take it to the creative. And so I started looking into the story and thought, wow, this is a pretty magnificent story. And Nick Reed, who's my partner, brought it in and said, no, you have to look at this. No, you have to do this. No, we have to do this. And Bob was in the back of my mind saying, yeah, you should do this, even though he didn't know that I was doing it. But in my mind, Bob was saying, do it. And so all of a sudden, this thing just took off, and we win the Oscar. The Emmy was actually before that. It was for, of all things, writing a variety show in Spanish. But one thing that Bob will tell you is you have to be very specific. And so what I said is I want to win an Emmy, so I did. Then this is the Tony, which, you know, I was telling Bob, I remember saying, you know, I really want to win a Tony. He goes, well, you know, I can show you how to win a Tony. It's just like winning the Oscar and the Emmy and anything else you do. And so I put it together. This came within 14 months. The Oscar was 14 years. So when I really applied Bob's programs and his teachings to this, it moves so fast. You can manifest anything. But you really have to listen to exactly what he says and do what he says and believe it. The Leo is for Canada. It's for British Columbia for their Academy, their version of the Academy Award. This is the Golden Panda from China, which is their version of the Academy Award. This is the swimming medal and some other swimming medals. And this is the actual Tony coin, which, believe it or not, I love, because I remember being a little boy and seeing Fiddler on the Roof and thinking, wow, I want to get a Tony coin, and then boom, it came. And so anything you want, you can get. I mean, when Bob called me about Robert Pascuzzi's book, he said, because I had actually met Robert Pascuzzi, I'm sure he remembers, because Peggy introduced us. And I get a lot of people coming up to me. And so I was thinking, okay, you know, his book sounds interesting. But when Bob calls you, it was like a Roger saying yesterday and Sandy this morning, when Bob tells you to do something, you just do it. So he called me and he said, have you read Robert Pascuzzi's book? And I go, oh, he gave it to me. This is Peggy's buddy. I said, no. And he goes, you need to read this book. And sure enough, it was like a week later, I read it and I thought, wow, this is a pretty amazing book. And so I put my team on it and the rest is history. And you saw what Robert and Kelly Pascuzzi accomplished in a very little time. I mean, they did it within just a couple of years, right? By the way, Kelly Pascuzzi, really tough. Don't let her fool you. But anyways, I was making a joke, but seriously, you have to listen to whatever Bob says. Do his programs, do everything. He doesn't, by the way, I paid him a lot of money. He does not pay me or anything else. A guy at the elevator today was asking me, why do you keep doing this? What does Bob pay you? Or Procter Gallagher, not a penny. And basically, I've made so much more money from just buying their. Can I just talk about one program? Lead the Field. I was here a couple of years ago. It's fantastic. And so they were selling Lead the Field, and not a lot of people were buying it. I bought it, full price, and I made over $1 million the first month. I mean, it's really crazy. I mean, you've got to listen to his stuff. I could go on and on.
You know, there's very, very few people, or there's very few places you can go where you'll see all this hardware being accomplished with one individual. You just won't. Where I said I think there was 3,075 Oscars, there was only 26 people that had won an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. Phil became number 27. Thanks, my friend. Thanks. Good.